This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, calling to order the meeting of the Ad Hoc Grant Committee for December 15th at about 2:30-ish. And we have Kate and Diana here, and Ed may be joining us if he has a moment. Basically just wanted to get together one more time before the holidays and kind of round out our year here and take a temperature check as to where we are on a variety of things. Don't see any open time for the public, so we'll just move into our normal agenda. And I have a couple of meeting minutes to approve that I'm sorry I just sent them around late. I forgot that I hadn't sent them before, so we'll take a minute. I'll share those up here. One is from the 26th of October. And what this thing is doing here, get out of the way. Okay, so this is a while ago, but this is back when we first learned, I guess, about the Signs and Lines grant not getting accepted, and then Safe Routes to Schools coming in with another idea. So if you want to take a minute or two and go through that, that's fine. Here comes Ed. Hey, Ed.
Hey, how are you? Sorry I'm late.
No, that's okay. We're just starting.
Yeah, too many Zoom meetings today and trying to put together the select board packet with Judy.
Yep, I know, and I owe you one thing. I did something and I messed up my formatting, so as soon as we're done here, I'll send it, but that's okay. Anyway, so this is just the minutes from the October 26th meeting. Anybody see anything that's kind of out of the ordinary? I think it was pretty set forward. We just talked about what was going on about that. This is before we were trying to decide whether we wanted to get involved in this program or not. And we mentioned at the time about the mass trails. We didn't know anything about it. And then Diana was looking for some other information, possibly for the church, about electric vehicle charging stations. So that was this meeting. If we could have a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the minutes.
All right.
Second.
All right. We'll count those approved. Everybody in favor? Approved? Yes.
Aye.
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 Yes.
All right. We actually, Kate, if you did them, I don't think I have them. The November 2nd meeting.
I just emailed them to you. I think I caught most of that meeting. I might have had to leave a few minutes early, but I think I captured the essence. So I did just send that to you a few minutes ago.
I'll tell you what, we can pick that one up at the next one. That's okay. Why don't we do that? It's just the one. I have the 11/8 one. I have the one after that. So I don't know if it makes sense to do it this one or not. I guess we can. So this is the one where we had Miranda come in and talk to us about some of the things that we were thinking about. And I think this is one, Kate, where you'd come in, you'd capture the conversation here, but you'd come in late, I think, to this meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I did just find e-media has been a little bit late in getting our meetings posted, but I finally did get them up there and understand that they have this new website now where we can find everything. So I did share that website with you in case anybody's looking to look for where these minutes are now found. They have a separate site from where they're putting up select board minutes, because we were kind of overrunning all their possibilities. So they opened up a second site for all the other non-critical meetings, I guess, of town. So one thing, as I started to listen to this and part of what you did miss a little bit was just some of the discussion with Miranda at the beginning. And I might just go back in and put in another paragraph about our discussion with her. We just spent time trying to explain to her some of our confusion and our thinking about this going in for this grant, and trying to pick her brain as to some of the ideas that the other grant program had and why they had refused us. So that was a bit of the meeting that I might just go back and add a couple sentences to here just to capture that. But other than that, just basically captured an ongoing kind of conversation with, Randall and Eliza and Ed, and just, kind of a free-flowing discussion about what we were thinking about and what some of the problems were while Miranda was with us online.
I'm also happy to go back in and add in that discussion if it's posted.
Yeah, I think it is. So we could hold off on this one actually, and we could do the next two, do the 2nd and the 8th together. It might be better to make them more sequential just to approve them. So we'll take the 26th and I'll get that one posted, and then we'll come back and take a look at that when you do the one for November 2nd. That would be great. Okay, so that's kind of where we are with that. Let me get rid of this sharing thing here in my way. One of the things I did was take a look. We seems to be grant season all of a sudden. But one piece of good news, I guess, since we last met, and I believe I did send this around to you, we did get clarification from Mass Trails that on the 2nd grant we put in for Mass Trails, which was the spring application in, I think it was like May, we had put in the application for an additional 200,000. Remember, we got 300,000 early on, and then we asked for 200,000 and they never told us anything. And lo and behold, they had recently just decided, I think in November, that they were just going to amend the current contracts. And so they had amended it, and we hadn't seen a copy of it right away. So instead of the 200, we did get 100 more. So they didn't give us the full amount we asked for, but we did get 100. So we have actually 400,000 from them on the design and permitting, which is great. And
so
then
400 from this year alone?
From this year alone, from January, the January submission and the May submission. So the 300 is the one that Ed and I drove down to get the little certificate for, right? And then the second meeting, they had said, they didn't really say they had extra money, but the assumption was they did, because they encouraged us to apply for a spring round as well. So yes, out of the 500 we asked for from them, we got 400. And then at the last special town meeting this week, we had $100,000 match to go with that. So we basically have 500,000 toward the design and permitting, which is great. I do believe that our friends over at Greenway Committee want to keep on putting in an application. So it's like, I saw Mark the other night and I said, guys, lead it and go for it. We'll take a look at it when you're ready for us to chime in. But I don't know. I mean, I guess it doesn't hurt to apply, but I'm wondering if Mass Trails isn't going to get sick of us very soon. But anyway, the grants that we have received, this 400,000, the challenge is that, the timeline is pretty short on this. And I really don't quite understand their year-long timelines. But basically things are supposed to be done by June of next year. So that's really only a 6-month window to get going with design. And, we haven't been able to start the design, even though we noted, we got the earlier award, because we don't have technical possession of the railroad yet. So I'll let Ed give a little update on that part, but we're getting there. But we're just to say that since we got that first grant, we're really probably 6 months off if we could have started very quickly. But nonetheless, Tie and Bond is going to be theoretically the group that's going to be working on the design, and they know that they're up against a time limit, I guess. But Ed, would you like to add in anything around that scenario there a little bit?
No, I think you covered it pretty well, and we definitely don't want any more design grants in fiscal year 2023, because if we add any more money to it, we won't be able to get it done by June 30th, 2023. But yes, it'll be Tie and Bond doing the design work for us under one of our on-call service contracts.
Mm-hmm. And we're still on target, as far as we know, for the closing on the railroad this month.
As far as I know, yes, the deed acceptance will be on the select board's agenda for Tuesday night, and we may close on that as soon as next week or the following week. So
Mhm.
Yay, yay.
So that would be great.
Mhm.
That's been a long time coming, I guess, long before any
Mhm.
of us were involved, or maybe
Yeah.
Diana, you might have been involved, but before me anyway.
I think it was a project that was actually probably around for a long time, even before I came here
Yeah,
five
no, I
years
believe.
ago. So yeah, I think it was been around for like at least 10 years, maybe longer before that.
Yeah, no, it definitely has been around. I think my folks were still alive when the first talking about this happened. So that goes back over 12 years anyway. So
Not to, I don't want to go out of scope of this meeting, but I did see some comments from butters regarding communication about acquisition, and I didn't know where that fell. If there needs to be any required communication to people who are along the railroad. I just wouldn't want it to hold it up if we are moving forward with the design process.
yeah,
That for the acquisition, when we get into the design process, there will be a reach out
Yep.
process during that.
yeah, there's got to be a major community outreach process, I think, as part of the design work. So that will happen at that point in time. And I'm sure there are some abutters that are still not happy with the idea, but you know,
Are you gonna put them in this agenda?
I think we're moving forward nonetheless.
Great.
And hopefully we can find some common ground as things get discussed.
Yeah,
So
that's
anyway, I think on the for Mass
Yeah.
Trails going forward, the if Mark and Ellen are going to work on another grant, it would be due in January. And again, I think the Mass Trails grant that would be submitted in January, we usually wouldn't hear about it until after July. So Ed, I'm hoping that would take care of your concern that if we got awarded something, it would actually fall in fiscal 24, I believe.
Yeah, that's what we would want.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that would be our timing anyway, in terms of when we hear from these guys has been pretty much that time frame. Let me if I can
That's
bring
really
this up.
exciting. I just want us to say that's super exciting. I mean, it's really wonderful.
So that is, moving along for sure. And I'll get back to the other grants in just a second. So this is well, no, let me finish what I was doing and I'll come back to this not to distract you here. So we have that one underway. The only one we have the notice to proceed also on the hazard mitigation plan update grant. That was around, thinking it was around 27,000 we got for that, with a $3,000 match from our part, which I think was pretty much in kind for people that would be involved in the meetings. And so our next step there is to go out for quotes from a couple of companies to actually carry out the update process with us. And unlike Mass Trails, this is the one where we thought we didn't need a big time. They gave us like 2.5 years on this one. So it's, no rhyme or reason in terms of some of these things, in terms of the amount of effort, at least we think we're involved, given that this is an update. It's not starting the plan from scratch, but so that's one that's got to get underway. We don't know anything yet about I think the only one hanging out there is the one that Ty and Bond helped with Randall on, the stormwater grant, asset management grant that basically took over from that culvert management grant that we didn't get. So Ty and Bond had put that one in, but we're not expecting to hear from that probably before February. They do seem to have a rolling approval process though, so we might hear in January, but the last I talked to the guys at Ty and Bond, they thought we wouldn't hear much before February on that one. So that's one that's actually unknown at this point. So that's the only one that's really hanging out there. And I'm in the process of updating the actual grants received this year, which I will get to. There's been a couple small ones received by Ian and John on their side, so I want to be sure to capture those as well, ones that they had put in for. So that's where we are. So we have probably the stickiest wicket that we have right now is our famous park grant, which has engendered all sorts of headaches and more than one conversation. As you know, we are way behind on that. A design was due in June on that. It expires the project expires in the upcoming June. And even though we had engaged an engineering firm to work on this, the first part of it was to do kind of the feasibility of this whole splash pad idea. And that has taken many turns, and I think we're coming down to a terminology change of just calling it a spray deck rather than a splash pad, but they're very similar. The terms seem to be used interchangeably. And we've been going round and round in terms of costing and what it would really look like and whether it needed to be Title V compliant. And so our Board of Health director has felt that it needed to be Title V compliant. And so we were kind of at a stumbling block and had a major phone call yesterday that had Ed, myself, Jerry, our Board of Health director, Randall, Tom Gaughan, Dylan was on there from the Parks Commission, and Ron Lauren, our building commissioner. So we had about a 7-person Southampton contingent, shall we say, on the phone with 2 of the GZA engineers to talk about possibilities. And the concern is obviously the soils there are quite clay and probably not very good for infiltrating. And so there was the whole talk about needing to do some test pits to figure out really what the drainage was and what we were facing there, whether we'd have just standing water or, just where the water level really is. We know we've seen water in soggy fields there, but what is it really going to mean for them if they get into doing anything? Then we spent a long time talking about the requirements for Title V, and I think we kind of were coming up to the conclusion, although I'm not sure that Jerry is totally convinced, that this is not the same as a septic system. It's not a sewer requirement where we're going to have, all sorts of organic nutrients going off the splash pad. Into a drainage system. There's always the possibility, as they said on the call, of some little kid having an accident, and you've got some little unwanted material going down in the drain. But given that it's flowing water, it shouldn't be that big a deal with the volume of flowing water. So anyway, what's happened, I think we've kind of agreed to, they are going to come out and do some test pits on probably Tuesday to take a look at what that means in terms of the soils there and the water drainage, and would most likely proceed with some sort of design for a spray deck with less volume. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, with less volume of gallons per minute. I think we were talking 12 to 14 gallons per minute.
Sounds right.
Versus, nearly 30 gallons or something like that. So cutting it about in half. And then trying to figure out if that was still doable. So that's starting to move, but it's still up in the air. The option that they had suggested, and I think the water department actually prefers, is a mister system, which is just a basically, from pictures I've seen, it's just a set of sort of standpipes, tall pipes, pipe-like things in the air, no fancy little animals or anything. And it's basically, it as you walk through it, it just sort of gives you a nice spray of cool mist, right? Literally the name. So you don't get your clothes wet. It's not something that anybody would get wet. You just really cool off a little bit. And it's, talking to Anya, who's the GZA design person, she said that they're primarily used in urban environments, much more so than ours. Although if we did do that, it would be less of an issue of any kind of runoff or, volume of water, etc. It would solve that problem in one way. I think personally, I'm of the opinion that we didn't really plan on misters, and I think it's a big difference from the idea of a splash pad or spray deck. And I'm not sure that either the town residents would like that idea. And it's probably not something that I think the park program would be overly excited about. We know from the fact that we got our extra scoring, I think, because of the splash pad And even
Yes,
though
we did.
even though it wasn't totally described in the application, it didn't need to be at that point. I kind of feel if we went back to a lesser than that system, even though it involved water of some sort, I'm not sure we'd be able to keep the grant, honestly. So I think we're of the mind to keep pushing forward toward the spray deck, get this feasibility part done through the soil testing and test pits, and see what Anya and crew can come up with. And if it looks like it's absolutely zero, I mean, there's no way on earth that this can work. Then I think we have to go back probably to Park and just say, hey guys, this doesn't look like it's going to be feasible, and they will probably, I would think, pull the entire grant. I don't think we would get half. I don't think we would get the walking path as well. I think they would pull the
No.
entire thing. Because I think that's where they were heavily leaning, and that's a lesson for us, I think, in terms of, both being excited, but also being mindful of, not being led down a path that we may not be able to adhere to. But we'll test it out one more step and see where this goes. And in another couple of weeks, we should know whether this is a feasibility idea to go forward with it or not. And that Anja would have to, with us, submit it into Melissa over at Park Program and see whether they would accept whatever she comes up with. And supposing she does, we still have a heck of a timeline, because I doubt she's going to be in the mood to give us an extension on this grant. So it's been a challenge. So it doesn't seem, we talked around the other option, just to close this off. We talked around the option of possibly changing location to put it over at Labrie, but aside from that, and what that would entail in terms of re-justifying that idea, there really is no infrastructure right now in place at Labrie to even handle this. So, until they had some septic or something in place or whatever, it's not going to solve the problem. So we decided to stick with Conant, but just kind of keep on plugging on the next step and see if we can make it through with a lesser volume, one that does not include any underground system, storage system, and recirculating system. I think, Kate, you would research that, and we'd crossed that out a long time ago. But there will be some need for an infiltration system underground to absorb the water that would come off of the splash pad. I would say at the meeting, Randall was very much very helpful in terms of his questions. Dylan's as well. Randall, though, especially, was putting forth some arguments that would help us with his stormwater permit issues by having something like the splash pad. So he raised some very good points that I think hopefully we could take them into consideration. So we've got, a mixture of feelings still, but we need to get to a point where we can either clearly say yes or no. So it's a challenge to say the least, but that's where we are on that one. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that?
No, but thank you for the update. It's super helpful.
Yeah. So we're just really hoping, Kate, that we can, and I think it would, if it has to go back for some reason for a Title V, we would want to throw it back to the entire Board of Health. I mean, I think it would not be just, Jerry's decision. And what I think I would recommend is that if we needed to, we would have, Anya, one of these people from GZA, be on a phone call with you at the Board of Health meeting just to hear from their point of view, what's doable if we need to go that way, but maybe we won't need to. Okay, can't hear you, sorry.
Sorry, and there's, when I had spoken to a state representative who's like a state sanitation officer, he had said that the big issue is standing water. And it sounds like if they're able to come up with a design that doesn't have standing water, then it doesn't pose the same health risks to people who would be using it.
Yeah.
And I think the other challenge, and I'm sure Jerry brought this up, is the fact that they're in process of revising the regulations around spray decks, because the existing swimming pool regulations don't necessarily provide it's hard to tell whether or not the existing regs even pertain to spray decks, and that's kind of been an ongoing question. And it sounds like those regulations are we're awaiting promulgation and hopefully being completely revised, because of course this is a whole pitch across the state to provide cooling stations.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
so it seems like there's some
Yeah.
alignment that needs to happen at the state level as well.
Quite true. Yeah. And it may just be that, there's an opportunity for us to hop right in while things are not totally final as well, quite honestly. But yes, the design folks confirmed that this would not have standing water. It would not be pooling. They would design it so that it would drain off. So anyway, so that's kind of the status of where we are with grants. Now, that said, we as a group, our little committee, believe it or not, we've gone through another year, if that's possible. And we need to get ourselves reappointed if we want to continue. So I guess I'm asking if everybody's willing to keep on plugging away at this for another year so we can put our names back before select board and get reappointed until next November.
Okay.
How is it done?
How could I say no?
Good, like that.
Yeah.
How about you, Diana? I know you got lots of
Yeah.
things going on.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how helpful I am,
Oh, you are, believe me. No, truly, I mean, more sets of eyes, the better. And, a lot of these things, we've done a couple of them, so we kind of know the sources to go to research things. But a lot of these too, we may come across that, we have no clue. We've got to do some more research in terms of what makes any sense to even try to ask for. So, any kind of skill is more than welcome.
Okay,
So.
yeah, I'll keep going.
I mean, I think we've had a good track record. I'd kind of like to chug it one more year anyway, and then,
Yeah.
it's a challenge, but go ahead.
And there's still a lot of unfinished business, so
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
walk away in the middle of that.
Well, I know that's true. And it's kind of, I think the challenge becomes, and I think we have to be very, selective as to where we want to focus our energies too. I mean, there's a lot out there as we'll go to right next with this program. This is just a chart, and this is separate from that master chart that we had made way back when, but this is just what's coming up in the next couple of months. And there's a lot out there. It's all grouped, unfortunately, so that many of them kind of show up at the same time. I think the challenge for any of these, let me finish off one point, and I really should just turn it over to Ed here, but I think in a way we've done so well that I think we can congratulate ourselves, rightly so, for pulling in the amount of money we have in town for these grants. It just proves the point that money is out there. It just takes concerted effort to go find it. So thank all of us for being available and willing to do that. The challenge comes in on the operational side, because then a whole lot dumps on Ed and then on Bradley. And that's where, we've created more administrative work on that side for things to get followed through on, whether it's, doing the contract itself, whether it's, going out for bids for equipment or engineers, or complying with quarterly reports, or all these crazy things that they put upon us in any grant program. So
we're in the middle of that. We just have to write the closeout form and the project summary and all that for Manhan Meadows. It's really,
so a lot of that, a lot of that is fallen to Ed, and it will fall to Bradley too, just in terms of the financial management of it all. So there's a downside too. I think however we can help Ed, we are more than willing to, whether it's something on quarterly reports or I don't know what, if we can. I mean, the thing is, I think once these things get funded, you're probably the one that's most in the know about what's happening with the various, contractors, et cetera. So it's a bit of a challenge, but if you have any ideas about how we could help with the load that's probably there for any of these grants that are ongoing, feel free to chime in with what it's meant in terms of your workload.
I think that's another challenge of having a small board. I mean, it's not that I think that we're not effective. I just feel like, Chris, you also carry a lot of the weight and pulling people together in order to collect the necessary information to be able to apply for these grants and organizing meetings. And I also want to acknowledge the work that you're putting forth in order to make that possible, recording the meetings, arranging the meetings. I do feel like it would be helpful to have somebody that might have a little bit of time on their hands that also has some knowledge or experience with grant writing that would be willing to donate some time, because it is a lot of work, and it's not it's not just Ed, right? Like, it's you too.
Well, thanks for that.
Not that I'm saying, Ed, you do a ton of work, and I'm sure this is a ton of paperwork. I'm just, I don't want to fail to acknowledge the fact that you've done a lot of lifting and making this committee efficient and effective.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
It occurs to me that we might, use some of this success rate and some of these statistics to lobby for, I don't know, a part-time grant, writer administrator. Maybe not right now, but in the future.
In the future, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That we got this much money, and, we could get even more, and this person would really more than pay for him or herself.
Yeah. I think we do have opportunities just in the short term. I mean, our charge has us have the ability to have more members. So to the extent we know of anybody or could find another person or two, that would want to join the committee, I think we can do that. We do just have to have them, volunteer as usual and fill out the forms. But there is room to have another person or two should we find anybody who's got some background that would really be of help and, would want to do it. So that's a possibility for a short term. But
we can post it on Facebook and just say, maybe come up with some line items of what we're looking for. Someone with experience of grant writing.
Ask the abutters on Facebook.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's totally true. Like, the people that complain the most are the people that don't get involved and don't participate. But maybe there are some people that, just say we're looking for somebody with experience and a little bit of time that would be committed to trying to source more funding for any sorts of town projects.
Yeah, we can think about that. That might be an idea. Maybe after the holidays, let people get through the holidays and then pick it back up again. But Ed, I just wanted to get your thoughts on anything I've been spieling about here.
I think the grant committee has done a great job, but I really think, and I know every time a grant comes up, you want to go get it, but I really think you have to start thinking about not only the administrative end of things, but even putting that together. And there's an administrative portion going on as the project is going on of the department head it's falling under. And I feel strongly that, okay, those constraints have to start being considered.
Yeah. Well, and right now, I mean, the parks thing and mass trails are pretty much, well, I don't know. I mean, the park one, theoretically Parks Commission, but in terms of department heads, we've definitely involved various departments in what's happening here. And a lot of that will be probably between Randall and Tom Gaughan, I would think, for the most part.
Right.
And the same with mass trails. Once we get, the design work going, a lot of that I think would probably be Randall, at least in that one as well.
Right. But you have to think about, okay, how does that impact the everyday aspect of their jobs too?
Right.
I have no concerns about one or two special projects per department per year. Once you get past that, you're probably putting a very difficult workload on the department.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And
I think,
to be honest, from an administrative standpoint, probably, when these boards and committees and I understand they're all volunteer positions, those are probably the toughest ones for either myself or Bradley to, shall we say, keep a handle on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, and I don't know whether there's a way to, just somehow I mean, it really does come down to the actual municipal employees, which are more you and Bradley, obviously, but if there's a way that we can be of any help in terms of some of the reporting requirements as they come along or whatever, to tap into us as your backup somehow.
Yeah.
I think
Appreciated.
we could
Definitely.
try and do that at least, because some of this is, just lots of deadlines and lots of paperwork to keep track of, for sure.
Right,
So
exactly.
just acknowledging that. So, okay. Well,
maybe we could also make that part of our meeting discussion and maybe this would require a little bit of backwards communication to say, okay, well, we've received this grant award. And, of course, I need to learn a little bit more about what goes into that. But maybe, Ed, part of your reporting back could be what additional administrative responsibilities are, due or coming up, or something that Bradley is working on in order to, I don't know, justify or provide additional documentation of grant funding. Because I feel like that's something, you're right, we get the money and then we kind of move on to the next project.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We have done that for sure. And a lot of these, with a couple of exceptions, most of these are reimbursable. So that means that, there's a whole lot of front load work that has to be done, whether it's, advertising, hiring contractors, going out for quotes, all of those kinds of things that really, only Ed can do as our procurement officer, but then trying to fill in the gaps where they occur on other parts of the task, is what I'm offering, if we can be of any help. So
any help is welcome. Like I say, I'm already going to start splitting them up where Bradley's going to handle some of them. So.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. Well, speaking on that, this may not be a good segue, but these are the ones that are coming up in the next month or two. And as I've said, on the Mass Trails one, the Greenway Committee wants to keep on chugging with that. And I think, to the extent that they can do something and want to, I'm willing to go ahead and enter the grant in. And like Ed said, we would hope that it would not fall in this fiscal year, because that would be, a real impossibility if we were to get it, because we couldn't possibly, get all that money done in that amount of time. But I think if we could, get the January one in, then the award should not be before July, I think, which would be the next fiscal year. So that should be doable. So I think the Mass Trails one is probably on the target. It's a February 1st deadline on that one. There's a couple others that, well, let me go through. Raise is that big federal one we did last year that Mark Cassis and I did. I'll wait to see if they're thinking about that one again. I'm not sure. But it ties into the Mass Trails one as well. The one thing I suggested to Mark is that, given that we've used pretty much the same narrative for this Mass Trails for like 3 grants now, if they can think of something else, it might be good. But I don't know, maybe we don't have to. It's just seems kind of odd to keep on applying the same way, the same thing. But
we do need money for the same thing, though.
I know it's the nature of things, right? I mean, you can only get it little dribs and drabs here. So
maybe it would be really helpful. I know that when I was at town meeting, I was thinking about that $6 million of funding and how inflation might make that $6 million price tag insufficient. But I was also curious if Ty and Bond could provide us with an expected or anticipated dollar figure about what we would need to do the overall design, because I've heard figures of 600,000, 800,000, 1.2 million. And of course that makes a big difference for what we're chasing after. And so
right.
I just wondered when Ty and Bond would be able to say, hey, this is what we actually need to, because I also think that's helpful for when you're submitting the Mass Trails application to say, we've identified this number of funds through blank programs, and this is still what we need to before 2025 in order to make this project feasible.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think we're somewhere between the 6 and 8 is what I've heard as well. And we will get that narrowed down as soon as we get tie and bond actually on board. They've got to, be contracted with as well. So as soon as that happens, hopefully in the next 2-3 weeks, that will get clearer in terms of what their cost is going to be to do the study with us. So yeah, the 6 million is down there at state. That's sitting in Boston, and that won't change anytime soon. I don't know that ever gets modified. I'm not sure about that. One thing I forgot to mention, sorry, remember we did have that one housing choice grant that the first 100,000 we got for the trail that we ended up losing because they wouldn't give us any kind of an extension, and we hadn't acquired the rail trail yet. So they were not willing to forgive anything and extend us. At the time, Senator Vellis and Rep. Pease put in money, I think, in the governor's bond bill to replace that. It didn't go anywhere. But what they did do at the same time is put in $50,000, so not the 100, but 50,000 into the economic development bill, which the governor did eventually sign. So we may have we think we have another 50,000 right there toward toward design that makes up for the 100,000 sort of that we lost, right? But we haven't gotten official wording on it yet, or how we access it yet, to my knowledge. But so there is another 50 in the pot here apparently, which is good. So anyway, of these coming up, the speed feedback school zone signs one. This just came to my attention. We had Jeff McCullough on, our transport guy from PVPC. I think I sent this around to you, his email, but this one just came up, and it's basically sounds like something very. Let me stop this sharing one and pull up another one if I have it here. Very similar to what we were looking for the what we've just done on Pomeroy Meadow. So this is basically, it doesn't say that it's a grant. It doesn't really tell us exactly what it is, but there's been a large concern about a lot of traffic crashes and speeding, etc., on Massachusetts roadways. And so apparently Mass DOT is coming out with this thing related to school areas in particular. And Mass DOT, so here's the killer right here. Mass DOT would like to provide solar-powered combination dynamic speed feedback and school zone speed limit sign assemblies to municipalities, one at either end of the school zone. The image below shows the typical assembly, blah, blah, blah. Mass DOT will procure and provide the equipment to the municipalities at no cost. Municipalities are responsible for installation and maintenance. Training will be provided by Mass DOT and the equipment vendor. So this one, something that's maybe free can also be a trap, but this might go in a way toward what we were talking about with our issues on Pomeroy Meadow. So what there is a webinar on Monday, which I've signed up for. It's about, I think I'm pretty sure I sent this around. If not, if anybody else would like to sign up, I'll re-forward this. But there's a webinar, I think, at 3:00 on Monday, just to find out more about this. And I'll invite Aliza and Ian and Randall, if they want to join in as well, to sign up for it. But then once that is done, then the actual application is due in, let me not lie. Where did that go?
You said January 16th.
Was it January 16th? Okay, I just lost it.
Can I just ask a question? So I thought we had some sort of signage approaching the school already.
From the west.
From the west, not the other way.
On Pomeroy Meadow Road, you're correct.
Yeah. So, but this would be more like the flashing yellow lights that are on Route 10, I think. The way I'm understanding it, this solar speed limit assembly thing. So that's why I'd like to see if Ian possibly has time to sit in on the webinar. If not, the webinar will be recorded anyway. So we might, this sounds like something we might want to go for, because if nothing else, should we get it, it would reduce our costing in the other grant, for one. But I don't know, given that they're putting it out there, it's worthwhile taking a look at it. I don't think we have any crash data in particular, however, on Pomeroy Meadow Road. And so whether that is a main requirement, that may kick us out of the pool. I don't know.
Hey, Chris, can I
Yeah,
ask you a question?
yeah.
If we got it, how would that reduce our cost on the other grant?
Well, because we had put in stoplights and crosswalks at the other grant, so we at least a stoplight. And I mean, when you put in this assembly thing, wouldn't you have to have the crosswalk that goes with it? That's what I don't know from
No,
the.
these are just speed zone signs.
Okay. I was thinking it was the big flashing yellow thing like on Route 10. It's not that?
It sounds like I'll look at it again, but it sounds like it's the speed zone signs that say, this is a school zone 20 miles an hour, and it'll flash your speed back at you.
Oh, you could be right. I'm sorry. Yep. I see that now. I didn't look at this closely. I think you are right.
We might have we have one of those, right?
We do. I don't necessarily know if it's a solar one or if it's actually electricity, but we do have one. But I mean, even if you got two and they say, oh, we'll put it at each end of the speed zone, is okay. Add one because we only have it in one direction on Pomeroy Meadow. And does it make sense? Because, I've gotten a number of complaints about speeding on Gun Road Extension. Do you put one on possibly on Gun Road Extension, maybe coming up the hill or something?
Yeah, that's an idea. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. I totally screwed that up.
No.
Yeah.
It's just how our brains work nowadays. It's easy to get these things, shall we say, cross confused.
Yeah, well, exactly. No doubt about that. But anyway, I think I just lost my list there. Where did it go? Oh, who knows? Hang on. Well, okay, let's try this. Just a second, guys. All right, let me try this one now. Did it go? No, it should have gone. Here it is. Okay, so anyway, that is one that I think we ought to probably take a listen to, at least on the webinar, and see if we think it's worth going for. And it looks like it would be a very similar, well, I don't know if it would be similar. Everything's online and you can't move forward in it until you get into it. So, but it seems like it would be fairly similar to some of the information we provided from our last DOT one. So it may not be a big lift, and hopefully is not as, it doesn't require a budget or anything like that. So anyway, just to say, I think that's one that we ought to try to aim for and take a look at. And we'll know after the webinar whether that's for real or not. The MVP expression of interest. This is one that there's an expression of interest due in January, and then the actual grant program isn't until a little bit later because they kind of go through the expressions of interest. I haven't had a chance to really look through this very carefully. I'm going to do that. But since we have our MVP plan, this might be time for an action grant. And we had applied through Tie and Bond for that culvert assessment and didn't get it. So there may be something else that, we would think of that would be another need, but we need to check through and see what the options are. And it would just be the expression of interest, which is usually just a 2 or 3 page kind of format at this point in time. And then if after discussion with the grant program, the expression of interest was an acceptable idea, then you actually get into the grant application. So that's one, I think, since we have the MVP plan, we probably ought to just take a double look at on this and see what this sounds like. So again, I'll forward these links around so you've got them as well.
Do we have the sorry, I thought I was on mute. Do we have the plan that we wrote? Because I think we identified a bunch of areas of opportunity like within that application.
Yeah, we have the MVP plan that was finalized, so I can link you back up to that as well. So we've got it all fresh in our minds. Yeah.
Just because January is like right around the corner.
I know, everything is. Now the next one, the LWCF, this is the Land, Water and Conservation Fund. This is one I put it on there just because it's a January deadline and we got notice of it. I guess just recently with Mass Trails. It's not one that we have applied for. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Diana, this might have been one of the earlier, I don't know, was it one of the watershed grants maybe? Or wasn't LWCF, was that, that wasn't Clearwater, was it? I don't remember.
No, Clearwater was a land grant, and this might have been what they used for the Courtney property. The water,
Yeah, or the Pomeroy Meadow lower watershed. one,
yeah,
maybe.
it could have
Not
been
sure.
either one of those would have been
Yeah.
primarily water. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I passed it on to open space, so they're aware of it, but I don't know of any particular thing ourselves, and this is one where I know it's a pretty heavy lift, and unless we had a request coming in from somebody, I'm saying we probably should pass on this one.
Yeah, unless we had like a chapter 61 or something.
Right,
And you do know about the landscape partnership grant. That's a huge deal.
that's the one with Kestrel that's working on with
Yes,
open space,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I think that would kind of supplant, any of these anyway. So I'm
Mhm.
going to say that one is just sort of not a priority for us in my mind at all.
Just going back to the MVP planning or action, I'm just looking at the plan now, and a couple of the main themes that we talked about was how there's no air conditioning at Norris School or cooling at Norris School, and we had like talked about potentially identifying that as a cooling area, or generators for more power resiliency, stress and emergency services,
Yeah.
peasant
So
disease control,
there's
climate
some ideas
migration.
there. So yeah, we'd have to get, a few heads together to say, okay, guys, this is out there, do some thinking and get back to us, right after the holidays and see whether we have a project or not. If there's something we want to put an idea in for, but I'll do a little bit more research on that and send it around to, maybe the school and Randall and a couple of other people, and to see what they might have in mind here. Because I think that's one we probably should follow up on now that we have a plan anyway. The Rays one, I'm going to kind of hold off and, we'll hear from the Greenway people. But again, they would take the lead on that if they want to do that crazy one again. We didn't get anywhere last year. So, I'm not sure that we're competitive to try and put that out again for the $1 million. But I'll wait to hear from the Greenway on that one. The One Stop is one that I would like to kind of come back around. It's not due until March, thank goodness. But this is also an expression of interest. We had tried this the first year it came out. I think the first year of the grant committee, as a matter of fact, we had put in the expressions of interest. One was on shared use development up at Red Rock Plaza to have both commercial and housing up there. We had done another one on, I think we tried the public safety complex and something else, and we didn't get anywhere with them. So we got some feedback at the time, if I recall, but I would have to go back and look at that. But it seems like it's one where we ought to maybe try and see if there's something that would fit, given that we've got, some major projects underway here, given our future public safety complex, our future senior center, our whatever that's happening. Other areas that could be done. This would allow, unlike some of these other grants, this would allow, I think, Ed, for vertical construction, which some grants don't. So it's one I need to delve into a bit more and understand better. So it's a ways off. So I've just put it on here so I wouldn't lose track of it. But this is kind of the bailiwick of what we have in front of us. And I've just put down the other two that we had gotten before, just to know when they would probably come around again based on past years' acceptance. So I think for me, sitting in on the webinar on Monday for starters and see what that entails, and moving forward on that, I think is okay in my mind. And
Could
then I'm willing
the
to,
MVP expression of interest, could that pertain to the safety complex as well?
I don't know. I have to double check in terms of the eligibility, the criteria of what they're looking for there. Not positive on that because it might be one of those things where it does a lot of internal things, but it doesn't do construction. Whereas the one-stop one definitely does involve construction. That's the one that goes to like 12 different grant programs in the state, and you put in one application, and whichever grant program is the most logical for it to sit with, they're the ones that kind of get back to you with feedback and things like that. So, yeah. So that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. Mass Trails, again, fine, but with the lead being Greenway, and having our focus really on these first two just to see what's there. So at our next meeting, I would come back with more information about, what Mass Trails, not Mass Trails, MVP, really is looking for us to be involved in that. But I would hope it would be something where we wouldn't have to necessarily hire a consultant to do it. I mean, that would be my hope. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that offhand? Everybody okay that we try to look at these first two anyway and see where we are with these, and then take it step by step?
Yes, I'm just looking at the MVP plan or a list of things that we identified through the MVP planning process. And it's a pretty short timeline to be able to come up with any sort of proposal to address any of like the high priority or even medium priority.
But it's just the expression of interest. It's not the full proposal, which is a major story. So, to have an expression of interest, it may be something that, we could manage, but it might require, somebody else, an outside consulting firm, to help us put an application together. I don't know. We did have, Randall had a couple extra bucks in his budget this year, so he was able to get Ty and Bond to help him with that culvert assessment, and that went in, and it required a lot of other technical work that we wouldn't have had the expertise to do. So it kind of depends on the project that we would land on, I think.
Well, because it's really targeting climate resilience and climate change. I think that it's worth considering looking at AC or a cooling station at Norris School.
Mm-hmm.
That was a high priority concern identified through the planning process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we can, I'll pull that back out, and then I'll reach back out to a couple of folks before the holidays here, and just have them have this on their radar screen, those that were involved, especially in the MVP planning. But anything that was a high priority should be fair game for us to take a look at, I would think. And I don't recall, I know at this point they don't have any new HVAC, right, up at Norris Ed, I don't believe. And
no,
did they finally get a backup generator? Do they have a generator up there or not? They don't.
That's one, and I'm just going to reiterate that if you want to go down the road of an emergency generator, you're going to need upfront costs, because you really need a electrical engineer to go in there and take a look at what they have, because of the mishmash of circuits and wires between the existing building and the addition.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. Good to know. Okay. All right. So that's basically all I had for information tonight. We could call it quits and then figure out when we would want to meet again. We'd probably have to meet in a couple of weeks' time, thereabouts, or shortly thereafter. Especially if there's anything that is useful out of this webinar on the 19th. So any other thoughts, or can we just look for a next meeting date and then call it quits for today?
Would you assign us what to look at on those first two? Or?
I could. Sure.
Yeah.
Would anybody else want to attend the webinar too? Or I'll send the link around if you want to sign up.
It's the 19th at 3.
Yeah. Oh, we don't all have to. I'll just send it around in case you're interested in it. But the MVP one, yeah, we'll have to take a look and look at that in more detail. So I'll send around the plan on that, and I need to refresh my mind on that too, I guess.
It just, for me, it's not very interesting.
Yeah.
I can try. It's like the busiest time of the semester at school.
Yeah.
But I can try to attend.
Yeah. Well, let me find out first, what's involved in writing the expression of interest, okay? Because, you know, if that's much more, you know, non-technical, more narrative, descriptive kind of stuff, then that may be tackled. But let me do a little bit more looking at it myself, and I'll get information back around to you, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thanks on that.
For our next meeting, are you thinking the week after Christmas is actually really good for me because we're closed, so.
But
Okay.
not for me. We're going to be out of town,
Yeah,
but that's okay. You don't
yeah.
need me necessarily.
Of course, we need you, Diana. Don't sell yourself short at all.
Yeah. Well, you can tell me what you need from me, but I don't have to be there.
Okay, well, there we go, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as you're doing these project closeout and whatever reports you're doing, we may need that skill in the future, too.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But anyway.
I feel bad for Bradley. Talk about that. I mean, he sent in this, I'm sure he thought it was fine and got back this huge memo about how to really do it and just the costs on, you know, screws and
It's his first one.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
let's-
if you wanted to set up a meeting for the 28th or the 29th, that Wednesday or Thursday, I'm just thinking, you know, that would give us like a couple of weeks if we did decide to move forward with an application for the grants that are due in the middle of January. That would give us 2 weeks, which still isn't a lot of time.
No.
No, I'm gone from the 26th through well, really that whole week. My son
Yeah.
and his partner are here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was that first date I said? The 16th? Was the first that webinar, not the webinar, but the speed sign one?
The
That was
19th.
due the 16th?
The 19th at 3.
That's the webinar, but the actual application was due, I think,
The due
January
is
16th.
January 16th.
Yeah.
But what do you have to do on that besides say, you know, that we
Want it.
have a
Yeah,
lot
I don't
of
know.
cars and we need signs.
Yeah, it's the catch-22. It's one of those where you don't know until you get into the actual application online.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming a lot of the information would be, you know, stuff that I could pull from what we just did on the other DOT grant. Let's tentatively say, Kate, if you could manage that, let's tentatively say the 29th, but a fallback on the 5th. I mean, if we don't need it on the 29th, that's fine. But if we could
At
put a placeholder
2:30?
down, what time is good for you?
That's fine.
2:30-ish or?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. All right, let's try the 29th at 2:30, and then if we don't need it, we'll make it the following week or something. But
Okay.
all right.
Yeah, just keep me posted if you want me to look
Yeah,
at something.
no. We'll do.
Okay.
Absolutely. Good. Well, other than that, happy holidays, everybody. If I don't see you, Merry Christmas, etc.
Yeah.
Merry
Merry
Christmas and
Christmas.
a
Yeah,
happy, healthy New Year to everybody. too.
Yes, very
Indeed.
happy New Year.
indeed.
Happy
Yeah,
holidays. Happy New Year. Thank
indeed.
you.
All
Take
right,
care.
we'll be in
Thanks.
touch. Thanks, guys.
Oh, wait, we need a meeting.
We need to
adjourn, right?
motion to adjourn. Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. We are
Thank you.
adjourned. 3:37. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.